Hi everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brittany, and in today's video we are going to be continuing on with our Learning to Read and Understand Pattern series. This video is going to be part 3 in that series. If you missed part 1, you can click right here and check that video out. In that video we covered all of the information on the front and the back of pattern envelopes, and we also talked about something super key, which is the finished garment measurements. So if you don't know what that is, or if you just need to get a better understanding of the pattern envelope, definitely check out part 1 in this series. You can click right here and check out part 2. Part 2 video, we covered all of the pattern sewing instructions, the general directions, understanding the guide, the cutting layout. We covered all those details in part 2. And then today's video, we're going to be cutting out our tissue paper, cutting out our fabric, transferring all of our markings, and getting our project ready to be sewn in part 4. So let's go ahead and get started now. Today we're going to be using Simplicity 8605, and I am going to be making view D on this pattern. The reason why I've decided to use this pattern is because I wanted to find something that was, one, easy to sew, and also a pattern that I haven't already cut out, so I'll be able to show you all how I cut out tissue paper. So in the previous patterns that I was using, that McCall's off-the-shoulder dress, that McCall's learn to sew skirt, I've already made those garments, so the pattern, the tissue paper is already cut out. So again, I just wanted to find an easy to sew pattern that I haven't cut all of the pattern pieces out for. So again, in this video, we're going to be using Simplicity 8605. I'm also kind of excited because I can show you right here that this pattern has 2 different numbers. So sometimes you will go into your local craft store and you will see patterns that are on display. This right here, this is their display number. So they have special patterns with special numbers specifically to be on display. So that is what this number is right here. But when you open up the drawer, you will be able to find it at 8605. So I was really excited when I saw this pattern. I was like, oh, that's one more thing that I can show you in case you all are kind of confused with the numbers. Now we've already covered the pattern envelope, so I'm not going to go into those details, but you can see here for this pattern you can make pants and you can make a skirt, and they have them at different lengths here, and they also have a tie. I have already made view A, but I have not made view C or view D, and so that's what I'm going to be sewing. I want to go ahead and make view D. I think that is a great beginner's project. If you want more details on how to read a pattern envelope, check out part 1 of this series. I've gone ahead and I've pulled out the pattern instructions as well as the tissue paper for this pattern. So again, this is what comes inside of your pattern envelope, and we have covered all the pattern guidelines, the sewing directions in part 2 of this series. I'm just going to go ahead and open these up really quickly because I wanted to mention one thing. I saw a comment up under part 2, and one of the viewers asked me if I could go into more details about these special cutting notes. If you see this star beside a pattern piece down here in the cutting layout, that is saying that if the layout shows a piece extending past the fold, cut out all pieces except that piece that extends. Open out fabric to single layer. We've talked about single layer and double layer, so they want you to open that out. Fabric side up, the right side of the fabric is up, and cut the extending piece on the right side of fabric in the position shown. So again, you will open it out, single thickness, and that pattern piece that's extending, so it would have that symbol beside it. If it's extending, cut all your pattern pieces out first, and then when you're done, it wants you to open up your fabric, single layer, right side of the fabric facing up, and then position the fabric piece the way that it is shown in the cutting layout. So that is what that one means when you see that star. When you see this symbol right here over in your special cutting notes and these diagrams, this is how you would get double thickness for your width nap fabrics. So those fabrics that have that direction print, those piles, you want to do double layer like this as opposed to just having it on the fold. And so what it says is mark small arrows along both salvages indicating direction of the nap or your design. So you see they have little arrows right here going in the direction of your design along the salvage edges, okay? So not the cut edge, but your salvage edge. And then it says to fold fabric crosswise with right sides together and cut along the fold. So this is the crosswise fold. So let me bring in some fabric to show you that. All right, so this right here is my fabric. You can see I have it folded right sides facing, and this is how you would normally see your fabric when you go to the craft stores. It's usually like this on the bolts that you would take to have cut. So this is how the fabric is usually folded. This is folded lengthwise. For crosswise fold, you're opening that out. You are folding it along the width of your fabric. So when you are folding your fabric crosswise fold, you have it opened out and you are folding it along the width of the fabric as opposed to doing it along the length of the fabric, which is what we see when we go to purchase our fabrics from craft stores. It is usually folded along the length and you have your 2, 3, 4 yardage of fabric. When you go to do the crosswise fold, you're opening up and you're folding it along the width. After you have cut it, next you turn one fabric layer around so arrows on both layers go in the same direction. Then you place right sides together. So you would again cut on the fold and turn one of the layers so that you have your direction print going in the same direction on both layers of the fabric. And then you would go ahead and cut out that pattern piece. So those are your special cutting notes. So when you see these symbols right here down on your cutting layout, make sure that you come back up here and just double check on what you need to do to cut out those pattern pieces. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our project. I am going to be making view D on this pattern. So I'm just going to go ahead and circle the pattern pieces that I need up here at the top. So I need to cut out pattern piece number 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I'm going to come down here to my cutting layout. I'm going to come over to find D. So CD is the skirt. It says again, here's our little double check, cut pattern pieces 4, 6, and 7. It did say 5 up here, but 5 is the elastic guide. So that's not getting cut out of fabric, but we do still need to cut it out. So the fabric pieces are 4, 6, and 7. And this right here is my cutting layout. And my fabric is 60-inch wide. I'm going to go ahead and circle 2B because it says all sizes. So it doesn't matter if this is for the smaller size or the larger sizes. And again, it has the width nap and the fabric width. So I'm going with 2B. This is my cutting layout. So now I'm going to go ahead and first get my pattern pieces and cut those out. So here is the pocket pattern piece 7. Here is the skirt 6. And like I said, I've already made these before. I made view A on this pattern. So I already have the casing, which is pattern piece number 4, and the elastic guide pattern piece number 5 cut out. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut out 6 and 7 and show you all how I cut out my pattern pieces. First thing first is my cutting tool. I like to use this small rotary cutter right here to cut out my pattern pieces. This blade is dull and I just put my dull blades on this. And again, this is what I like to use. I find it much faster than scissors. But again, this is just my personal preference. If you like scissors, use what's best for you. But this is what I like to use for cutting out my pattern pieces. This is just for paper only, not for fabric. So I'm gonna go ahead and just smooth out my pattern piece here and go ahead and cut it out. And as you can see, I like to cut right along the cutting line. So I don't leave a little extra off. I know some people do, but this is just what I like to do. I just like to cut right along that solid cutting line. Okay, there's my pocket piece. Now, if your pattern pieces are really wrinkled, or if you just want to go ahead and give them a light press with a warm iron just to smooth your pattern piece out, you can go ahead and do that. Here's my next pattern piece to cut, pattern piece number 6. And I'm just gonna take a quick look at this to make sure I cut the right size. Okay, so this right here is pattern piece number 6. This is the front and the back for C and D, and we're going to cut 2 on fold. Over here you can see they have the finished garment measurements printed for the hip. So based off of these finished garment measurements and how I want my skirt to fit, I don't want it to be too oversized, but I also don't want it to be snug. I want it to be very loose and casual. I'm gonna cut the medium, which is gonna give me a lot of room, and that is what I want. Nice, simple, casual pull-on skirt. So using my rotary cutter, I'm gonna go ahead and cut out the pattern along the medium lines, and I want to make view D, which is the shorter skirt. This one one right here is for view C. Cutting line for view C, cutting line for view D. I'm gonna cut this one right here. So I'm just gonna go ahead and follow along with that solid cutting line. When I get right here to where the lines start to split off, I always like to drag my finger to make sure I stay on my cutting line, because those lines can get really confusing and you don't want to start cutting the wrong side. So here's the medium. All right, we have just cut our front and back pattern piece out. We've also just cut out our pocket piece. So this right here is a cut 2 on fold. The pocket piece is a cut 4. The casing piece is cut 2. And the elastic guide, we do not cut this out of fabric. We just measure our elastic up against this. So now I have my skirt pattern pieces all ready to cut. I'm gonna move this over to the side, because these pieces right here that has view C on these, I actually keep these because one day down the road I may want to make the longer version of this skirt. So I just go ahead and fold this back up and keep it. Grab the envelope and I just slide this back in here, just in case I want to make the longer version. Now that we have our pattern pieces all cut out, let's go ahead and grab our fabric. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. For cutting out fabric, I like to use rotary cutters also, and right now I am using my LDH rotary cutter. Right now I have it locked. It has a little button right here. You push that and it unlocks it. And so you just hold on right here and cut your fabric, and when you let it go, the blade goes back, which I like because it's not locked in place, so I don't have to keep doing this, but it also isn't exposed, so I won't accidentally like cut myself randomly picking it up or something. So I really do love my LDH rotary cutting blade. I also have my marking tools right here to transfer any notches, dots, and symbols. I have my fabric shears right here also from LDH, so I can clip into notches. Pattern weights right here. I use these washers right here from the hardware store, and pins. So that's all the tools that I usually keep on my table right here when I'm getting ready to cut out pattern pieces in fabric. For my fabric, I have the fabric folded. It is folded right sides together. These are the salvage edges. These are the cut edges. This fabric has been pre-washed, so it's already washed and dried. So I'm just gonna follow my cutting layout. First thing first, I'm gonna grab pattern piece number 6, and I'm going to lay this one down. All right, so this right here is the center fold, so I'm going to place it on the fold of my fabric right here. Bring it down a little bit from the edge because I know my fabric isn't even under here. It's not straight across even, it dips down. So I want to make sure I am on both layers. Now I'm going to go ahead and lay down my pattern weights. All right, once you have your pattern pieces laid out, I'm gonna go ahead and grab my rotary cutter, and I'm gonna cut all the way along the outside of the pattern. All right, I removed the remaining fabric from around it. So this right here is my pattern piece. Before I move this pattern piece and remove my weights, I want to go ahead and transfer my markings. So to transfer my markings, I take a pin, and these circles right here, the ones that say M for medium, I'm just going to put a pin right through them. I'm going to grab my marking tool. First, I'm going to lift back the pattern. I'm just going to make a circle here around the pin. Same thing on the other one. And now I'm going to fold back and do the same thing on the other side. So I'm marking on the wrong sides of my fabric. Okay, so I've marked on this side and I've marked on this side. I've marked on both wrong sides of the fabric, so now I can remove my pins. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my shears, and I'm just gonna put a small little snip right here, right along the edge. I'm gonna slide everything over because I have another notch right here. I'm just gonna snip into this one. All right, so I've just cut out one of pattern piece number 6. We need to cut out 2. So I'm just gonna do that same thing again so I can have 2 on the fold for the front and the back. All right, so I've just went ahead and cut out another pattern piece number 6. So I have my front and my back now both cut on the fold. I've transferred the notches as well as the circles. And I also placed a pin here through all layers just to keep everything in place until I get ready to start sewing it. So I just fold everything up and put it to the side, and then I continue cutting out the rest of the pattern pieces. So for me, I don't have a very wide table, so sometimes I will go ahead and maybe put 1 or 2 patterns down and cut those out and then go to the next ones. I can't plot everything out at once because my table just isn't that wide and that long. So after I have cut out one pattern piece, I will just bring the next one so you can kind of see my skirt piece right here. But I've kept everything together so I can just grab my cutting layout and I see what was beside that, and they have the pocket, so pattern piece number 7. So I'm gonna grab my pocket piece, and that fits right here. I'm gonna make sure I have both layers and bring that down some. Make sure I have both layers under here. And I'm gonna go ahead and lay down some pattern weights. And since this is not on the fold, it has a grain line, I'm gonna grab my measuring tape right here, and I'm just going to measure over from the selvage edge of the fabric to the grain line to make sure it is all even. And so I'm gonna pull it a little closer so that it's lining up on 5. So I'm just gonna scooch it over just a little bit. And now I'm just gonna place a pin right down here. And make sure the rest of the grain line is also on 5. So just measure over from your grain line to your selvage. That's one way to make sure that you are on grain. I do know with some fabrics you have to sometimes cut and tear your fabric to get it back on grain and everything situated the way it should be. But for this, just measure across, make sure that you are even and on grain with your selvage edge. And now let's go ahead and cut our pattern piece out. And we need 4 for our pocket. Okay, I'm gonna grab my scissors and put a snip. I'm gonna grab 2 pins and put into these circles here. I'm gonna transfer the markings. First, I'm gonna pull back the tissue paper and just place a circle all the way around the pin. Same thing for this one. And then I'm gonna flip it over to do it to this wrong side of the fabric. Now I can remove the pins. So we've just cut out 2 pattern pieces. We need to cut out 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut out 2 more for the pockets. I'm also gonna cut out my waistband, and then we will be ready to start sewing. All right, so I've gone ahead and cut out pattern piece number 4, and this one was our casing, and we needed to cut out 2. So I've cut that out, transferred the notches and the dots the same like I did for the other pattern pieces. And so I have everything cut out. We needed pattern piece number 4, pattern piece number 5. Again, this is just the elastic guide. Pattern piece number 6, the front and back, 2 on the fold, and pattern piece number 7, this is the pocket, and we needed 4. So now that we have everything cut out and prepped, we can sew our skirt Simplicity 8605 View D together in part 4 of this Learning to Read and Understand pattern series. Well, that is all for this video, and I really do hope that it was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them down for me in the comment section. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel, turn on your notifications so you don't miss the last video in our Learning to Read and Understand commercial patterns. That video will be part 4, and I cannot wait to sew this skirt in that video. I'll see you all then. Blessings, everyone. Bye.